This is Earl Amin with the 2020 Foresight Podcast, where CEOs of small to global companies share their insights. It is 6 questions in 9 minutes because top CEOs know how to listen and be concise. So let's get to it. So, in just a few sentences, tell us who you are and what you do.
Sure. So I'm Jocelynne Rainey. I am the president and CEO of Getting Out and Staying Out, GOSO. GOSO is located in East Harlem. We serve young men across all 5 boroughs in New York City who have been touched by the criminal justice system. The young men that we serve are 16 to 24. And we also have a program called SAVE that works in the community as credible messengers. And they're there to disrupt violence. And they do that through a lot of community engagement. So the work that we do is really critical. The majority of people we serve are Black or Latinx. And we know that they are disproportionately impacted by the criminal justice system through over-policing, and through just the way that the court system works when we look at people of color.
Is SAVE an acronym?
SAVE is an acronym, thank you, for Stand Against Violence, East Harlem. I know I want to stay within that 9 minutes, but I really wanted to make sure that I talked about SAVE's work because I think that is so important that we do the work that prevents young people from being incarcerated, as well as supporting them once they've been incarcerated, once they've been released, and then once they're back in the community in order to help them to connect to work and employment and to education as well. So thank you for asking that.
You're most welcome. So what's the best thing about being the CEO of your company?
I knew, I've been CEO now for 2 years. I knew when I was working on my doctorate that I wanted to run a nonprofit that was grounded in equity for people of color, and had many conversations with my previous CEO that was something that was really important to me. And I think that the reason what's best about it is that it's my vision, my vision for the work and how we meet the mission. So even though I think that as a team, which includes my board and our community and my staff, we decide together, like, what is the best mission? I think that, as the CEO, I can execute on the vision on how we meet that mission. And for me, it's really being very focused on systemic racism, on inequity, and I just feel so fulfilled to be able to do the work in that way.
Very good. Now, I hear from other CEOs that leading their team and being able to see what lies ahead can be a challenge. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that leading a team is always hard, right? Like you really have to understand that each member of the team is an individual, regardless of the size of your organization, and what's driving them may be very different from what drives you. And I think in this day and age, what I find is a lot of organizations and CEOs and leaders talk about, people being focused on the mission. And what that focus on the mission could mean to different people could be different. Right. So I think that I've learned that I need to be clear about where I want to go, but also understand that someone might be taking a different route than the way that I'm going, and being able to identify like those people who are committed to the mission, whatever that mission may be. And I think that mission is important in for-profit or nonprofit, is really important. So I try to stay very focused on individuals as I'm leading my teams.
Very good. Well, with that massive insight that you have, what piece of insight would you like to share with other CEOs?
I think that what's really important is that you have a clarity around what your narrative is and what your vision is, right? Like you need to be able to say, like, what is your organization bringing to the world? And I think that we're very clear in this day and age, regardless of if you're for profit or nonprofit, that there needs to be some good that's given to the world in general. And so you need to be very clear about that, clear about why you're doing this work and being able to talk to people in that way. That's how you're able to draw more customers. That's how you're able to draw more funding. It's like really having that clarity. And I think the other piece is the understanding that as a leader, which is really hard for me as an African American woman, is to understand also that you have to give all the accolades and take all the blame. You know, your organization and your team are reflective of you. They are you. And that, you know, you need to be strong enough in your leadership to be able to give them all of the credit because they're the ones out there doing the frontline work, but also being able to take all the blame. And I think that at the end of the day helps you to be more strategic and helps you to be, because I know I don't want to fail. So if something is failing and I know that I'm going to stand in front of my board and say, listen, I messed that up or I missed something, I'm going to figure out how not to miss that again. If I put the blame on others, then I'm not going to do that hard work that I have to do in order to dig into my organization. So I would say those are the two things: being very clear about why you're doing this work and very, very clear that, you know, the organization and the team, they're you and they're reflective of you as the leader.
Well said. Well, what other successful CEOs like yourself would you like to acknowledge and should be on my podcast?
I love it. So, you know, a dear, dear friend of mine, Diane Billings-Burford, she is the CEO and president of a nonprofit called Rise. Rise works with professional sports teams in order to combat systemic racism. And I think that it's an amazing organization, and the way that she's able to engage professional sports owners and people in sports is amazing to get this work done across the country. I think that the executive director of LISC here in New York City, her name is Valerie White. She would also be a great person for you to talk about because she is digging into economic development and small businesses and how they can be successful in New York City.
Outstanding. Now, for the final question, how do you celebrate a win?
I celebrate with my team. Celebrating wins are really important, and I celebrate by celebrating with my team and letting them know immediately why we were successful and, you know, what role they played in it. So that's how I celebrate wins. I celebrate in staff meetings and one-on-ones, but with my team.
Indeed. Dr. Jocelynne Rainey, it's been a pleasure having you on today. How
Thank
can
you.
people find you?
You can find me at gosonyc.org. That's where you can read about my work. And you can always email me directly at jrainey@gosonyc.org.
Outstanding. This is Earl Amin with the 2024 Site Podcast. For more insights, go to LinkedIn and search for The Gray Owl Company. Dr. Jocelynne Rainey, thank you very much.
Thank you, Earl.